Hi everyone, I am the Beardy Red Viking, and this is the Metal Time 2024. So welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a little while again, often is, probably will be again in the future. I'm not going to speak any more about it. I will be making videos this year. How often? I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully more often than they have been recently. Anyway, let's get started. So the Rock Scout normally does the metal tag every year. He's done it for at least 2 or 3 years now, where he asks 20 questions of the metal portion of the VC, and he asks us all to answer them in video format. This is the third one I did. The first one I did was Metal Tag 2022, and that was the first video I ever actually recorded for YouTube. Last year, because I'd injured my back, I did it in sections. I did it as little shorts on my YouTube channel instead of as a long form video. And this is now my third. Now this year it's not actually been set by Scott, it's been set by Heavy Metallurgy, the guys over in the US. Check out their channel if you haven't done already. I will leave a link to the original video setting the metal tag and asking the questions down below. If you feel like making a video for this, go ahead, we'd love to see it. So, let's get started. To be honest, there's quite a few. We've got Judas Priest, High on Fire, Testament, Nails, The Halo Effect, Kerry King's bringing out his first solo album, you've got Nile, you've got Chelsea Wolf, the Black Dahlia Murder are bringing out their first album since the tragic suicide of Trevor Sternad a few years ago. It'll be interesting to hear what they've got up the sleeves with the guitarist on vocals now. We've also got Gatecreeper, who finished recording last autumn. But the album that's confirmed for this year that I'm looking forward to the most has got to be the new Skeletal Remains, called Fragments of the Ageless. They're one of my absolute favourites of the new wave of death metal, and were very high up in terms of the bands that really got me back into discovering new music a few years ago. I'd gone through a period of just listening to the same old stuff that I'd known for years, and Skeletal Remains were one of those bands that really got me back into discovering new music. So I'm really looking forward to what they've got coming out soon. The single that they released back in December, Relentless Appetite, is an absolute belter. So I'm massively looking forward to seeing what they've got up the sleeve next. Gotta be honest, this one was a difficult one for me, because although I think dragons are awesome, most albums with dragons on the cover are power metal albums, and gotta be honest, I can't stand power metal for the most part. So I've had to go for something that you might consider to be a little bit of a cheat. This is the reissue from last year of Dismember's Like an Ever-Flowing Stream. And although they're not live dragons, living, breathing dragons, I'm pretty sure those sort of skeletal statues spewing out water there are supposed to be dragons. If that doesn't count, you've got this classic Painkiller from Judas Priest, and it's a motorcycle with a dragon on the front. So yeah, if you're not happy with those answers, sorry, I don't have anything else that I can think of right now, but knowing me, I'll probably think of something the second I finish recording this video. Well, Like an Ever-Flowing Stream by Dismember, which I showed in answer to the last question, was definitely a grail of mine, but I've already mentioned that, so I thought I'd go with something that you might not have heard of. You may have, you may not have. This is a band called Boss Keloid I call them. This is their 2016 album, Herb Your Enthusiasm. I've wanted it for years. I've been after it on CD for a long time, but for whatever reason I never picked it up. But I saw them back in March last year and they had it available on vinyl, so I wanted to pick it up. Awesome artwork, awesome band, and they love a good pun. So if you don't know Boss Keloid, or you don't know this album, this is absolutely chock full of seriously groovy, riff-filled heaviness from Wigan. It's gloriously original, it's progressive metal with powerful, soulful vocals, and I would highly recommend it. Boss Keloid, Herb Your Enthusiasm. This was a bit of a toughie for me because I pretty much never purchase digital music. In honesty, I've only ever bought digital music 3 times in my life. One of those was when Rage Against the Machine's Killing in the Name was going for Christmas #1 back about 10 years ago to beat off X Factor. I was all on board with that, so I bought that on iTunes back in the day when iTunes was still a thing. And the next year I did something similar with the Surfing Bird song. There was a campaign to try and get that to Christmas #1 as well. It failed, but I was on board, I bought it. And the third item that I purchased digitally in my life, as far as I'm aware, there might be a couple of others that I've forgotten. My good friend Rick has, in the last couple of years, started writing and recording music again after a bit of a time away. I used to be in a band with him called Insidium back in the mid to late 2000s. He's a great musician, he's a fantastic songwriter, and he released an EP digitally only in March of last year. So obviously that was the only option, so I bought it online. However, he has recently released this, which is Visions of a Dying World, his second EP. But if you have a look at the back, bonus tracks are the first EP, self-titled. So this is now in my possession in physical format. So although I was happy to have it on digital format, I don't need to have it just on digital format anymore, because he brought the CD out for this back in December and I bought it off him straight away. You've probably seen Sean mention this recently on his channel, The Beast. I sent it to him in a VCLT just before Christmas and he's been banging on about it, saying how great it is, and you can't dispute that fact. If you enjoy a bit of a melodic death metal, this is fantastic. You can hear it playing in the background. So this is Embers Ignite. I will leave a link down to Rick's Bandcamp page down below. For this one, I'm going to go with this, Desultory Into Eternity. This is an album that I first heard of through Mike, Metal Mickey, when he was talking about it a fair bit last year. I know a few other people in the VC jumped on it. This is absolutely fantastic, Swedish sounding death metal in the veins of Entombed and the like, but you wouldn't know it from the cover. It's pretty nondescript in terms of what it would be genre-wise by looking at the cover. It looks like it could almost be Christian rock, or if you're talking metal, I would guess doom metal, but it isn't. As I say, it's death metal and it's fantastic. Highly recommend checking it out. Well, this one's an easy one. You probably know the answer to this already before I've even said, but it's this band. My favourite band of all time, despite their sins over the last 30 years, Metallica. I have everything they've ever done on CD, apart from Lulu, because that's just atrocious. Yeah, so I've got this Live Shit Binge and Purge box set on VHS, absolute classic. I've had that for about 20 years. I've got CDs, I've got vinyl, I've got DVDs, I've got magazines, I've got official books, I've got unofficial books, I've got bootlegs, and I've got box sets. Other than Master of Puppets, which goes for an absolute fortune these days. Sadly, I missed it when it first came out. I wasn't in the financial situation to be able to afford to spend 150, 200 quid on a box set. But I missed that one. But I do have Kill 'Em All, I've got Ride the Lightning, and Justice for All, and I've got the Black Album. They are apparently bringing out one for Load and Reload this year, which will be interesting. And I will buy it because I do like most of Load and bits of Reload. Not the best albums by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, I've got lots of Metallica stuff. I've even got pop figures of all the band and Lady Justice. I've got a pair of shoes, in fact I've got 2 pairs of shoes, I've got loads of t-shirts, I've got caps, I've got all sorts. So yeah, definitely Metallica. I couldn't even count the number of items that I've got. I wouldn't even bother trying right now. For this one, I'm going to show Trenchfoot's Moral Obscenity. It's their second EP from 2022, released on Brutal Cave Productions. It's 3 tracks of savage, riffy, old school death metal. I bought this alongside several other CDs from Brutal Cave directly on their Bandcamp a few months back. I made a video for that. I'll link that down in the description below. But this is brilliant, and I had heard of it, so it's not a full-on blind buy, I suppose. I was aware of it, and it had been mentioned by other people such as Mark G with a C, and I was aware of them, so it's not a blind buy in the truest sense of the word, as in where you go into a record shop and just buy something because you like the look of it. I didn't do that last year, so this is the closest I've got, but it's fantastic. Trenchfoot, Moral Obscenity. This one, I've got loads. I could show any number of albums, but I'm trying to go with a little bit of variety with the music. I could show Metallica, I could show Mastodon, I could show several other bands, any number of albums, but I'm going to go with Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. This is my original CD. As you can see, it's seen better days. I don't know exactly when this particular edition was pressed, but I bought this back in the late 90s, probably about 97, maybe 98. So it's quite an old CD copy. I also have it on a reissued vinyl edition. I have a bootleg of the vinyl with the original artwork. Never listened to it, but that artwork's iconic, and it's not cheap to buy an official version, so I picked it up on bootleg when I saw it cheap. And then I've got a CD box set. Well, you can't really see much there, but it's embossed with the cross logo that you see on the CD version I showed there and the vinyl. And then there's like a book inside with pictures, posters, all sorts of stuff. And then a number of CDs at the back. 5 CD box set. And then there's a load of trinkets and stuff like that inside this envelope. I won't get that all out because I've shown that in the past anyway. But yeah, that's a cool little box set. But that I have on 4 different formats. This one's a bit of an irritating one because I was going to show Mastodon, Leviathan. But it turns out that loads of people are showing that one. Even people that didn't choose it as their actual answer have mentioned it in their videos. So I had to think outside the box a little bit and go for something else. What I've gone for is this. It's Ahab's The Boats of the Glencarrig. It's a 2015 concept album based on a horror novel written by English author William Hope Hodgson of the same name, The Boats of the Glencarrig. It was first published in 1907. I'll be honest, I haven't read the book, but according to Wikipedia, the novel is written in an archaic style and is presented as a true account, written in 1757, of events occurring earlier. The narrator is a passenger who was travelling on the ship Glencarrig, which was lost at sea when it struck a hidden rock. The story is about the adventures of the survivors who escaped the wreck in 2 lifeboats. Sounds like an interesting story. I haven't actually read the book, but it's now public domain because it's so old, so it can be downloaded free of charge on the internet. I fully intend to do that and give it a read at some point. That's Ahab with The Boats of Glencarrig. I am booked, along with loads of other dudes from the VC, to go to Glasgow this coming weekend as I record that, 27th of January, to see a load of death metal bands, including Trenchfoot, who I showed before, also including Consecration, Malediction, Brainbath, Penny Coffin, and loads more. So that's something that I've actually booked to go a reasonable distance for. Glasgow's not close to here. I know the Americans and some of the Europeans will be able to come up with ideas that will take them much further than that, but for me, going up to Glasgow, a bit of a trek. If we're talking purely hypothetical, then I'd have to say Dismember once again. Dismember have been touring over the last couple of years, having reformed, and they've been playing the Like an Ever-Flowing Stream album in its entirety. I would love to see that. They were booked to play a couple of festivals over the last couple of years in this country, but they were cancelled. So I'd love to see that set. I'm hoping that either Damnation or Bloodstock will book them so I don't have to travel a considerable distance. Gotta be honest, there was only one answer for this. A couple of people have shown it. Metallica 72 Seasons. I wasn't particularly excited at first when I heard the singles, but over a bit of time they grew on me, and I went to the launch party at my local cinema the night before, and I started to get a little bit giddy. I went out in the morning on the day of release and bought it on vinyl and cassette. Played it through 5 times on release day after forking out 40 quid for this particular edition. But I burnt myself out. I've not actually listened to it all the way through since. I've heard bits here and there, but yeah, I've not listened through the album since the day of release. I kind of did the same thing with the previous album as well, and to a lesser extent I did it a little bit with Death Magnetic, where I hammered them when they first came out and then didn't listen to them much after that. But yeah, Metallica 72 Seasons is a good album. It's decent. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's not even a patch on their older work, as I'm sure you will be aware. Decent album, but yeah, I listened to it too much on the day of release and I've not gone back to it since. That will be this lady, Emma Ruth Rundle. Primarily she makes post-rock music, but she's tried her hand at all sorts. This is post-rock. This album's a post-rock kind of album as well. She's tried her hands at all sorts, including ambient and also acoustic singer-songwriter kind of stuff. The most recent album from her is this one, Engine of Hell. And yeah, it's not your typical singer-songwriter stuff, but it's very dark. It's all about loss and addiction. It's all acoustic, solo, no drums or anything like that. It's all completely unplugged. Beautiful album, but everything she puts out is great. I know her best as a solo artist, but she's also been in a few bands such as Red Sparrows and Marriages. She's appeared on a collaborative album with Thou a few years ago, which was absolutely fantastic, and she's also released a single with Chelsea Wolfe, and I love everything I've heard. For me, it's got to be this band, In Flames. They were one of the formative Copenhagen-style melodic death metal bands, and their early work is exceptional, including this one, Oracle. A lot of people lost interest in them around 2000 after Clayman, but I loved that album, and I actually didn't discover them until 2002 with this album, Reboot to Remain, and I love this album. It's absolutely brilliant. After that, the next album, Soundtrack to Your Escape, was something of a disappointment, a bit of a blend of nu metal and metalcore, which was kind of popular at the time. But they returned to form with Come Clarity a few years after that. But then they released this, A Sense of Purpose, which has got a couple of okay tunes on it, but overall it's a bit of a dud. I've got more time for them and probably given them more leeway than a lot of people would do, but I think that's probably because I only discovered them in 2002, where some people would say they'd already started their decline. But for me, this album onwards is where they really went downhill. Jesper Stromblad, the founding guitarist and primary songwriter, left after this album, and they've completely changed the sound, and I'm not interested at all. Sounds like they might have returned to form a little bit with the album they released last year from a few of the songs that I heard, but I never ended up buying the album, so that shows you the kind of interest I had. There's actually more original members of In Flames in the band The Halo Effect nowadays than there is In Flames, so that tells you a lot that you need to know. In Flames, loved them when I first got into them, spent a lot of time really enjoying a lot of their music, but honestly, they should have quit while they were ahead. For this one, I'm going to go with Energetic Crusher, Path to Oblivion. I saw this shown on the Merciful Metal channel, and it was playing in the background, and I loved it. And I saw it on Discogs while I was watching that video. I checked it out on Discogs, found it for an absolutely bargain price, and I purchased it. It's kind of old school thrash metal. This is a fantastic album. I recommend checking it out. This is the question that I deliberated about longer than any other, because to be honest, if I enjoy an album, how can I say it's too long? The only thing that I could come up with, the only thing that came into my mind was this, Hushed and Grim by Mastodon, and honestly, I don't think this album is too long. Yes, it's long. It's a double album, 2 records, 15 songs, 90 minutes, and I understand why it'd be a bit much for some people, but I love absolutely every second of this. But I didn't want to cop out of the question completely, so I'm going to mention it because I do understand why some people would find this a bit much, a bit fatiguing. Personally, I absolutely love it. I think it's a belting album, but I didn't want to cop out. So there you go. You get a half-arsed answer from me on that one, to be perfectly honest. Now, I tried to avoid mentioning the same band more than once in this video, but I failed miserably. Metallica's come up twice, and now Mastodon have come up twice. Look at that. Space Owl, Laser Owl, whatever you want to call it. I absolutely love brightly coloured, fun, wacky artwork, and this is exactly that. They originally sold it quite a few years ago and I missed it, and I've been gutted about that ever since. But then I saw it pop up shortly before Christmas on their web store, and I almost wet myself with excitement and ordered it straight away. I absolutely love this thing. It's utterly brilliant. It's exactly the kind of artwork I love. Not that this is the only kind of artwork I love, but I do love this kind of wacky stuff. Look at all the colours, look at this. You've got weird warrior dudes with bows and arrows. You've got crazy 4-legged beasts with 6 eyes running in the background, being chased by an owl, a robot owl with laser eyes. It's awesome. I absolutely love it. It's exactly my kind of thing. This is my favourite band t-shirt by an absolute mile. Now, I came up with an answer to this a while back, and I was quite pleased with the answer that I came up with, but unfortunately I watched Chris Green Saber's video the other day and he nicked my answer, so I'm kind of gutted about that. But yeah, my answer's the same as Chris's. If you've not seen his video, make sure you check it out. It's Napalm Death. Musically, politically, especially given the depressingly ongoing rise of fascism and right-wing political views in this day and age, their views, their politics, their lyrics are still just as relevant today as they ever were. This is their debut album from 1987, Scum. This is actually the most recent one that I own. The Code is Red, Long Live the Code. That's from back in about 2005, I think. But that's not because I don't think they're still great or musically relevant. I just haven't ended up picking up any of their newer stuff. I've listened to it online. I enjoy it. I do need to right that wrong and pick some more of their stuff up from more recently. Gonna go and see them in March, I think it is. I'm not sure, 100% sure yet, whether it's going to be in Sheffield or Liverpool. There's a few people from the VC, I think, going to each of those dates. I will be going to one of those, and I'm looking forward to it. Napalm Death, still just as relevant as ever. It's Eddie. Who else? I know other people have mentioned some others, and there are some pretty iconic mascots out there in the world of heavy metal, but none of them comes close to Eddie. There's so many different iterations of him, so many different looks, so many different versions. This is my personal favourite, Somewhere in Time Eddie. Space Eddie, Space Bounty Hunter Eddie, whatever you want to call him. I think he looks fucking mint. I've got him as a pop figure as well. I love this dude. I love pretty much every version of Eddie. Power Slave Eddie is a favourite of mine as well. But yeah, the answer to this question is Eddie, and it was never going to be anything else. So I picked out the Infernal Sea with Negotium Crucis. This is their third full length from 2020. I only actually discovered them at Reaperfest in 2022, but they're absolutely brilliant. Put on a fantastic show. So I purchased this from the merch stand immediately afterwards. It's groovy, almost black and roll style black metal, yet somehow it still sounds savage and oppressive. I saw them at Damnation 23 as well last year, and again they put on a fantastic show. Got robes and masks and plague masks and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, highly recommend checking them out live. They're actually playing at Rebellion in Manchester next month, but unfortunately that's the weekend I'm going away with my missus for my 40th birthday to York, so sadly I'm going to miss that, which I'm gutted about. But yeah, this album is fantastic. They do have 2 before this one, and they've got a new one coming out in the next couple of months as well, which is bound to be brilliant. I will be picking that up very soon. But yeah, Infernal Sea are brilliant. This album's fantastic. Good pick for me from the shelf. So we've reached the final question, and again, it's another one that I really struggled with. I know it's taken me a while to get this video out. Some people have had theirs out for 3 weeks or more now, but I've been thinking a lot about these because some of the questions were really difficult, and this is one of the toughest ones for me. I really struggled, couldn't think of anything off my own head, so I went with Metal Archives because I know Metal Archives can be a little bit picky about what they consider to be metal, and they don't consider anything that has ever been classed as new metal to be metal. But it's absolute bollocks with a band like Deftones. There's no way you can say Deftones aren't a metal band. Maybe alternative metal may not be exactly the dictionary definition of your average metal band, heavy metal, power metal, whatever, but they're definitely a metal band, and this album is my absolute favourite by them. I love everything basically that Deftones have put out. There's a couple of slightly weaker ones in the 2000s-ish, but yeah, this is their absolute masterpiece. It's weird, it's ethereal, it's emotional, it's sexy, and in places it's downright heavy. There's also word of a new Deftones album coming out this year, which I'm looking forward to if it does come out this year. They're recording again with Nick Raskulinecz, who produced Diamond Eyes in 2010, which was considered a bit of a comeback after those slightly weaker years, and Koino Yoken in 2012. And he's also produced great albums with Foo Fighters, Mastodon, Alice in Chains. So I'm really excited for what Deftones are coming out with next. But yeah, Deftones, not metal. Okay, their first album was probably a little bit on the new metal side. Even Around the Fur probably had elements of it, but I would class them more in the alternative metal kind of genre. And to say that not metal at all is ridiculous. So those are my answers to this year's metal tag. I'm glad I finally got it out, and I got it out before the end of January. This weekend, as I say, I'm looking forward to Dead of Winter Fest up in Scotland. If you don't have a ticket and you can get up to Glasgow this weekend, highly recommend it. Loads of us are going to be there, have a few beers, listen to some gnarly death metal. Make sure you get down there if you can and you aren't already planning to do so. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you all. Make sure you leave some comments down below if you've got anything to say about my choices here or anything else you want to talk about. I'll be happy to read them. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more of my stuff as and when it comes out. Thank you very much. Take care, and I'll see you all soon. Lady Red Viking, out.